All right, folks, welcome to how to fill out the form 1120 so you can get the return of all of the taxes you filed this year. So we're going to walk through this thing really quickly because it's not complicated. And before we get into that, though, I do want to actually show you some information directly on this form and in the tax law and tax code that shows that this form actually doesn't even apply to you. And I'll show you that as we go along. The first thing I want to show you is here, this word corporations. Let's take a look at what that word actually means in the tax law. So, term corporation includes, and when you see the word includes in the tax law, it limits the scope to which the law can be applied to the category of that first listing. So, in this case, associations having a power or privilege that a blah 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 private corporation but an individual or partnership possesses, right? But not an individual or a partnership possesses. But here's the key part of that is association having a power or privilege, because in the tax law and in tax context, the only legal context or the only legal tax is what's called an excise tax. And an excise tax is a tax that's based not on the amount of money you earn, because that would be a direct tax which is illegal, but it's actually an excise tax is a tax on the activity that produces the revenue. And the activities that are considered that are taxable are what's called privileged activities. And privileged activities are activities that, in order for them to be performed, have to have the existence of government in order to be performed. For example, you know, presidents, senators, judges, mayors, sheriffs, all of that, government employees, all of that. In order for those positions to exist, there has to be government. So those are all activities. Those are all considered privileged activities. And so the word corporation is speaks specifically to associations that perform a a privileged activity, as we had just mentioned, right? Which is one that requires government to exist in order for it to operate. So basically, employees, government, public officials, elected officials, and government employees, right? So if that's not you, if you're not the government, then this form doesn't actually apply to you. But this is going to be your last filing, because what you're going to do is, now that you understand, and I'm going to show you here in just a few moments some of the key words that show that this form doesn't apply to you, and that the taxes tax law actually does not apply to you, because what you are doing, you are not involved with the government. So only income that is received from or in payment in exchange for service to the government are taxable. Nothing else is. Okay, so going forth, this is going to pick up a little bit quicker now, because it's just going to go. I had to get that preliminary explanation out of the way so that now you can understand why this is the correct way to be filing. Okay, and so you would select the calendar year 2023, or if you have a different fiscal year, you would put that information in there. And then you would select if this is a consolidated return, which is a form, you can add a form A51, which is probably not applicable. If this is a life or non-life consolidated return, which that's only applicable if it's a government related life or non-life consolidated return that is related to government. Again, personal holdings company, or personal service corp, or schedule M3 attached. You you know your company better than I do. If you're not sure, schedule a one-on-one, and we'll go through the process of seeing exactly which one it is for you. But if you're not sure, you can just also just leave it blank, and then move on to the next section where you put your name, your address, etc. Employer identification number. Now let's take a look again at this word, or let's take a look now at this word employer, because it doesn't show you there, but that word actually has a custom definition. But to get to the definition of the word employer, we have to get to the definition of wages, but we're not going to get to that yet. As you can see here, let's just take a look at what the word employer means. Okay, says the employer means the person for whom an individual performs or performed any service of whatever nature as the employee of such person. Right? I mean, that sounds like regular, right? Sounds like, yeah, an employee is someone who works for someone who hired them, right? Okay. So that, where's the custom definition at that? Where's the custom aspect of it. Well, if that would be all right if you didn't know that except for the word employee, which doesn't show you here, but the word employee has a custom definition. Let's take a look at what the definition for employee for tax purposes is. So in the tax code and in the tax law, the word employee means includes, and again includes, limits the scope of application to the category of people of the initial listing. So includes an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States. And now this United States is actually, it's not actually in reference to the United States, the nation. It's not even in reference, I mean, it's supposed to be referencing the government, but it's actually referencing the United States of America Corporation. But that's a topic for a whole nother video. But just understand that the point of this, the important part is that it says an officer of the United States government, employee of the United States government, or a elected official of the United States, a state, or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, etc., which all of those actually mean the same thing: District of Columbia, or the corporation of the United States of America. Not the nation, not the people, not the geography, but the corporation, right? So if the employee for tax context is someone who works for the government or is a public official or provides services or goods to the government, then an employee, I'm sorry, then an employer by definition has to be the government, right? Has to be that United States District of Columbia, that United States of America corporation, right? So if you are not the United States government, you actually shouldn't have an employer identification number, but that's the way in their system that so far that part of the grand deception has been going along, and that's how they recognize you. So go ahead and just, now you didn't know this before, but now you have this information. You'll put in there the EIN that you've always used, that they assigned you, the date you incorporated, and its total assets. You can leave that blank, and then you can check this is an initial return. So going forward, again, now you know that none of this information actually applies to you because you don't earn wages, earn, you're not an employer, right? So you don't, so your income isn't taxable. You're not the government, so your income is not taxable. You don't earn from the government, so your income is not taxable. So for the purposes of this form, this income section is going to be all zeros. And this is what really makes this simplified once you understand it. For you, unless you work for or receive pay from the government, tax laws don't apply to you. So this becomes really simple. Since there's no taxable income, there's no deductions, right? And since there's no deductions, there's no credits either. But this next section here is where the payments are, which is what's important, right? So the taxable income, of course, is zero, right? Total tax again is zero, reserved for future uses. You can leave that blank. So total payments thus far in 33, what you're going to put here is the total amount of the taxes that you've paid for this year. Okay, so the total amount of taxes that the company paid, their portion that you're gonna request back, you're gonna ask for a return, is that's what you would put here in 33. Estimated tax penalty is gonna be none. Leave that alone. 35, amount owed, is gonna be none because it's just actually gonna get an overpayment because the taxes you had paid up to now were illegal, and you should not have paid them, right? Because you did not earn, you were not, you are not an corporation as defined by the tax law. And so what you would do is the overpayment amount you would put here, which is a total amount of payments, which is the same number on 33 should be on 36, and then on 36 would be 37. And then you'd leave this blank because again, you do not want to credit 2024 estimated taxes, because from this point forward, now that you understand the tax laws don't apply to you, you do not have to file any longer. You do not have to report taxes because only income that comes from government sources is taxable. Okay, so keep that there. And then next, let's scroll down a little bit. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, okay, so we'll scroll down a little bit and went too far. Sign here, you sign your date, your title. If you want to have us do it, let us know, and you can check there, yes, and and have our information here. If not, if you want to do it on your own, which you absolutely can, you can just do that, check no, and that's perfectly fine. Going forward, what we're going to see here now is the dividends, inclusions, and special deductions. Again, this is stuff to, this only applies to all these any of these items applied to specific money that was made in relation to to the government, right? So if again, if you don't work with the government, you don't get paid from the government, you don't have um, taxable income, right? So this again is all going to be zeros. Zeros and 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 zeros, and obviously what's grayed out just leave blank, and it's zeros and zeros, and leave, you know, blanks and zeros and zeros and zeros, and again gray, leave the gray out. Then tax computations and payment here in the number one, the tax income, this or income tax, I'm sorry, this is where you, again, you're going to put the total amount of taxes that you have, that that the company paid this for this year, right? And then B, erosion minimum, leave that tax amount, leave that, it should be zero. Corporate alternate should be zero. And then again, that's going to be zero. And then foreign tax credits is zero. Five is zero, zero. Again, no credits, zero, zero, no bonds. Total credits is zero. Number seven is zero. Number eight, zero. Nine, zero, 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 right? All those taxes are zero, 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 zero taxes, zero taxes. And then the total taxes down here should be the total of how much taxes you paid, right? And then going forward, payments and refundable credits section, part two, reserved for future use, leave that alone. Proceeding years overpayment, which you should not have. If you did have an overpayment, actually, I'm sorry, you did have an overpayment because all your taxes were overpaid, but we're gonna file a separate form for that, so you can do each of these individually. That way, to keep things as simple in the process as again, we want to keep things simple for the government. You don't want to complicate things. This is all zero, 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 and then 18 again. 18 is the total, again, withholdings, taxes that you paid, so you would put that there. 19 is total payments, again, the total payments you made there. And then 20 is all zeros, and then 21 is zeros. 22 again is zero, and then 23 is the same as line 33 on page 1, and lines 19, 21, and 22 right here. So that would be the total taxes that you have paid. You'd put that there, and moving on to the next section. Okay, here, now this would look familiar. Your Schedule K, I mean, this should look kind of familiar. You'd select whether your accounting method is cash, accrual, or other. If you're unsure, you can schedule a call and we can go over that. You can see here, you'll put your business activity code here, number, whatever it is. You can Google it, IRS business code, activity code, for whatever your activity is. Business activity here, product or service here. Is the corporation a subsidiary? No. At the end of the year, no, no. At the end of the year, no, and then leave that blank. B is no, and leave that blank. 6 is no, 7 is no, so leave all that rest of that stuff blank. Okay, next is 13 is, are the corporation's total receipts for the tax total assets less than? Yes. Corporation does not require to complete schedules L, M1, and M2, which are towards the end of this, right? So you'll put distributions, that's going to be 0. So then 14 is going to be no, not 15 is going to be no, 16 is going to be no, 17 is going to be no, 18 is no, 19 is no, 20 is no, 21 is no, 22 is no, 23 is no, 24, let's take a look here, no, no, and no, 25 is no, 0, 26 is no, 27 is no, 28 is no, 8 is no, 29 is no, 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 30 is no, 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 31 is no, and that's all that we'll have to fill out, because the rest of this does not apply to us. And as we mentioned earlier, Schedule L, M1, and M2 are not necessary to file to fill out. So that's all you need, and we'll see you on the next video.